Barings Bank was a British merchant bank, a firm that arranged finance, investments, and trading for wealthy clients, companies, and governments. It was founded in 1762, making it Britain's oldest merchant bank, and for more than 2 centuries it sat near the center of British finance. Barings mattered because it was not a tiny gamble shop on the edge of the market. It had helped finance historic deals like the Louisiana Purchase and had survived wars, panics, and earlier crises. This video is about how that institution collapsed in 1995, not because the world suddenly stopped trusting banking, but because one trader in its Singapore office was allowed to place risky bets and also control the paperwork that was supposed to check them. The rise. Nick Leeson joined Barings in 1989. He was not born into the old merchant banking elite, but inside Barings he became useful because he understood the operational plumbing of trades, the confirmations, settlements, and reconciliations that prove money has moved where everyone says it moved. In April 1992, Barings transferred him to Singapore as a derivatives operations manager for Barings Securities Singapore, the bank's local trading arm. A derivative is a financial contract whose value depends on something else, like a stock index. A futures contract is one type of derivative, an agreement to buy or sell at a future price. Leeson was supposed to exploit tiny price differences in Nikkei 225 futures contracts, linked to Japan's main stock index, between the Osaka Securities Exchange in Japan and the Singapore International Monetary Exchange, known as CIMEX. That strategy was called arbitrage, meaning a low-risk attempt to profit from price gaps between markets. On paper, it sounded disciplined. A trade in one market would be offset by a matching trade in the other. The bank should earn small gains without taking a giant view on whether Japanese shares would rise or fall. Barings also gave Leeson unusual responsibility. He became both the front office, the team that makes trades, and the back office, the team that checks and settles them. That meant the man taking the risk was also supervising the record of the risk. For a while, London saw success. Leeson reported profits that senior managers wanted to believe. In 1993, his activities accounted for almost 10% of Barings' overall profits. In 1994, he booked £28.5 million of false profits out of Barings' £37 million operating profit. To managers far away from the Singapore trading floor, the young trader looked like a rare profit engine. Warning signs. The danger was already visible in the design of the job. In a healthy bank, no trader should be able to check his own trades, because losses can be hidden before anyone independent sees them. At Barings, that basic barrier was broken. The hiding place had a name, account 88888. It was originally opened on July 3, 1992, for genuine error trades made by inexperienced staff. An error account is meant to be a temporary bin where mistakes are parked until they are investigated and corrected. Leeson turned it into a private vault for losses. By the end of September 1992, the hidden losses had already reached $8 million. That was not a rounding error. It was an early signal that the control system was failing. But because Leeson controlled both the trades and the settlement process, he could keep sending London the version it wanted: profitable, busy, and apparently under control. The numbers kept getting worse. By the end of December 1994, losses in account 88888 had risen to $373.9 million, or about £208 million. At the same time, Leeson falsely reported £102 million in profits to British tax authorities, and within Barings' accounts he booked £28.5 million in false profits. The contradiction was extreme. One hidden account was bleeding cash, while the official story said Singapore was making Barings rich. There was one moment when the bank could have stopped and asked the right question. In August 1994, an internal audit raised concerns that Leeson was in charge of both trading and settlement. That was the exact weakness that allowed the fraud to survive. But Barings kept him in place, partly because he was experienced and partly because his reported profits were too attractive to disturb. The warning was not invisible. It was inconvenient, the collapse. In January 1995, Leeson moved from hiding losses to making massive directional bets on the Nikkei 225 index. Directional means he was no longer simply matching positions between markets. He was betting that the market would move in the direction he needed. That turned a supposed arbitrage desk into a casino table funded by one of Britain's most famous banks. Then, on January 17, 1995, the Kobe earthquake struck Japan. The disaster hit the Japanese economy, and the Nikkei 225 fell sharply. For Leeson, that market move attacked the exact positions he needed to recover. A disciplined trader cuts losses when the position is wrong. Leeson did the opposite. He doubled down, placing even larger bets in the hope that the market would rebound and rescue him. Each new bet required more money, and each failed recovery made the hole deeper. By February 23, 1995, the losses had accumulated to about $4 billion. That day, Leeson left Singapore for Kuala Lumpur, the capital of Malaysia. Behind him, he left a note with 2 words, "I'm sorry." The note mattered because the fiction could no longer be maintained. Around the same time, Barings auditors discovered the fraud, and Chairman Peter Baring received Leeson's confession. On February 24, officials at Baring Securities Singapore found account 8888 and linked the discrepancy to it. What had looked like a profitable trading operation was revealed as a hidden loss machine. The final number was £827 million, about $1.3 billion at the time. That was not just a painful loss. It was roughly twice Baring's available trading capital, meaning the bank did not have enough financial cushion to absorb what one office had produced. The institution that had survived since 1762 could not survive its own control failure. Over the weekend, the Bank of England, the United Kingdom's central bank, tried to organize a rescue. Its governor, Eddie George, ultimately decided Barings should be allowed to fail, sending a message that bank management could not expect rescue after ignoring basic responsibility. On February 26, 1995, Barings was declared insolvent, meaning it could not meet its financial obligations. The aftermath moved quickly. On March 2, Leeson was arrested in Frankfurt, Germany. On March 6, Barings was sold to Internationale Nederlanden Group, or ING, a Dutch financial institution, for the nominal price of £1. Later that year, Leeson was extradited to Singapore. On December 1, 1995, he pleaded guilty to 2 charges of fraud and forgery, and was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. Lessons. The simple version of this story is that a rogue trader broke a bank. That version is incomplete. Leeson made the trades, hid the losses, and forged the picture of success. But Barings created the conditions that let the lie grow from an error account into a fatal balance sheet wound. The first lesson is separation of duties. The person who takes risk must never be the same person who verifies it. Front office and back office are not boring bureaucracy. They are the guardrail between ambition and catastrophe. The second lesson is that profits can be a warning sign. Leeson's reported returns were unusually large for the low-risk arbitrage he claimed to be doing. Senior managers in London did not fully understand how he was generating those profits, but they accepted the results. When a business cannot explain where its money is coming from, the money should not comfort anyone. The third lesson is that audits only matter if leaders act on them. The August 1994 audit identified the dangerous concentration of power. Keeping Leeson in place turned a control finding into a decision. Du Bois, after the collapse, Singapore amended its Futures Trading Act and strengthened its framework for futures trading. The case became a classic warning in finance because it shows how fraud, incentives, and weak supervision connect. Barings was not destroyed by 5 digits alone. Account 88888 was only the container. The real failure was a culture that treated reported profit as proof, ignored the mechanics behind it, and let one employee become both the gambler and the referee. That is why Britain's oldest merchant bank ended not with a market crash by itself, but with a signature on a £1 sale.